So in the last 48 hours, both President Macron here in France and Boris Johnson over there in Blighty have come up with their COVID plans for the next few months. They're very different. In this video I'm going to take a look at both of them, compare and contrast as they say, and give you my opinion on which one's the best. Don't go anywhere. So last night the French gathered round their TV sets to watch President Macron tell them their fate. He has maintained the national lockdown for another 2 weeks at least, until December the 15th. And what he's chosen to do instead is some relaxation. So basically from this Saturday, non-essential shops can open and hairdressers can open. But, and this is the biggie, what he has decided is that restaurants and bars cannot, and gyms cannot reopen until at least January the 20th. Essentially, instead of tiers, what France has gone for are 3 stages of unlocking. The first stage is this one that comes this Saturday, where the shops, non-essential shops, can reopen, churches can reopen, I think with 30 people in them, etc. But we still need an attestation to leave the house. So on December the 15th, providing the cases are daily case rate is at 5,000 or less, then the second stage occurs, which is the unlocking, whereby we actually no longer need to have an attestation to leave the house. There is still a curfew from 9 p.m. till 7 a.m, but we are allowed to mix. So from the 15th of December, potentially here in France, you are allowed to mix with other people. Now, in terms of Christmas, France has opted for a very, very different strategy. Basically, the curfew, the 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew, will be relaxed on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. Who of the two prime ministers has made the right call? Well, first off, one should say that the situation in the two countries is not exactly the same. France's second wave has been bigger in terms of hospitalizations than its first. I think it peaked at around 38,000 people in hospital. I think as yesterday there'd been a drop and we were down to about 30. Now, as far as I know, the British hospitalization figures are about 17,000. So France has had a more severe second wave, despite the fact that they had a very, very tight first lockdown early on this year that was very successful. It got the figures right down, which meant they had a very long free summer, perhaps too long and too free. But that is where France is now. So who do I think's got the best policy? There is a clarity to Macron's message. There is a clarity of destination, of where we're headed. Right at the start of this, a month ago, he made very clear that the cases had to come down to 5,000 daily for anything to change. Well, they've just about reached that, though not consistently, and so he's allowed the retail to open. But what he hasn't done is allowed the bars and restaurants to open, and again he's been very clear that that will not change until January the 20th. Similarly, he's been very clear that we will cease to be in lockdown on December the 15th, providing we get to that 5,000 figure. What he does is he sets very palpable, recognizable targets for the French people, and they can either achieve them or they can't. He encourages a collective endeavour. He encourages us to try and work towards a collective goal. I think the British system is incredibly vague. I think the tiers 1, 2 and 3 thing will very quickly become so complex as to be meaningless, and people will get very, very frustrated with it. I think it'll be very hard for areas in tier 3 to escape. It'll be very easy for areas in tier 2 to be pushed into tier 3, and tier 1 areas will barely exist. That said, if I were in a tier 2 area or a tier 1 area, perhaps I'd favour Johnson's policy over Macron's. But time will tell as to which one is the most successful. I'm not an epidemiologist, but all I can say from a communications point of view, Macron's message is much clearer. And it doesn't sound to me as if it's been written on the back of a fag packet. We've had a plan and we've stuck to it. That said, there are many French people who are very furious with him about what he's done, about how draconian this lockdown is in terms of bars and restaurants and gyms. And there are many people who believe that having achieved so much in the spring with such a heavy duty lockdown, that perhaps the shackles were taken off too easily. But Captain Hindsight is a great intellectual, isn't he? But for my money, much as I would quite like to go for a meal in a restaurant, quite like to go and sit in a coffee shop where I normally go and do my work, would love to go to the gym, for my money, I suspect that what Macron's doing is right, because I think there is no way we're going to avoid some kind of third wave. Whether it's as big as the second wave or not, I don't know, but I can't see how we can possibly avoid it completely. So I think the way Macron is looking at it is going to buy us more time going into the spring. The great danger with Johnson's policy, as Keir Starmer said when he said it was risky, is that you end up with the tier system not working, and then you end up having to lock everything down again, which would be economically ruinous. So that's my view. Thank God there's a vaccine coming. Thank God for science. The scientists have come in for an awful lot of flack recently, and I feel very sorry for them, because in the end they're just a football kicked around by the tabloid press. Oh, Dr. Doom. And there was a sage scientist I know piped up in Britain today saying that he thought the Christmas relaxation policy of the British government was a disaster. And the Daily Mail, I think, branded him Scrooge or something. I mean, it's so childish. The man is not... do they think scientists just sit there thinking, let's spoil everyone's fun? I mean, he's giving his view. He may be wrong, he may be right, but it's certainly worth listening to. And I think in our hearts, most of us know that there will be a price to pay for the 5-day relaxation, just as there will be a price to pay, I suspect, for Christmas Eve not having a curfew here, and for New Year's Eve not having a curfew here, because I think that will be one hell of a party night. The more you open up, the more fun you have, the more you pay down the line. It's a bit like drugs and booze and most fun things, really. Cheese, chocolate. Anyway, that's my view. I think the tiers thing is far too complicated. I think the 5 days for Christmas thing is a bit bonkers, but then I don't care a toss about Christmas. And it's easier for the French to legislate for Christmas, because by and large the French do Christmas Eve, a little bit on Christmas Day, and that's it. There's no such thing as Boxing Day and all that. The next big event that follows is New Year's Eve. Oh, and don't forget, if you disagree with me, or if you agree with me, leave a comment in the section below. Do you think Macron's a little dictator and Boris has got it right? Or do you think Boris is just a bumbling fool, coming up with plans on the back of a fag packet to appease his backbenchers, to keep the tabloid press happy, and that it has nothing to do with public health and everything to do with popularity? Speak soon. Bye.